I want to share the story of a long-gone friend named Daniel, someone whose life took a dramatic and tragic turn, but ultimately led to an extraordinary transformation. Daniel was a man who faced incredible hardships, and his journey is one that has left a deep impact on those who knew him. His story is not just about loss and pain, but also about hope, redemption, and the mysteries of life and death that can change a person forever. Daniel was convicted of killing 2 men many years ago. He spent 13 long years in prison for this charge. The incident that led to his conviction was a tragic one. Daniel had been mugged by these 2 men, and in a desperate act of self-defense, he fought back, which resulted in their deaths. It was a heartbreaking situation because Daniel wasn't a cold-blooded criminal. He was a good person caught in a terrible moment, defending himself from harm. However, the law saw it differently, and he paid a heavy price for it. Spending over a decade behind bars for something that wasn't a premeditated crime left deep scars on Daniel's heart and mind. As you can imagine, this experience turned him into a bitter and jaded man. To Daniel, justice was nothing but a cruel joke. He felt that life itself was meaningless, just a random collection of experiences that led nowhere and added up to nothing but emptiness. He often spoke about how he saw no purpose in anything, no reason to hope or believe in something greater. Life to him was a harsh and empty road with no destination worth reaching. After serving his sentence, Daniel was released from prison, but the weight of those years never left him. He carried a heavy burden of resentment and disillusionment. He struggled to find his place in a world that had moved on without him. He had no faith in people, no trust in systems, and certainly no belief in anything beyond the harsh reality he had lived through. For Daniel, life was just something to endure, not to cherish or celebrate. But then, something unimaginable happened that changed everything for him. Sometime after his release, Daniel suffered a major heart attack. It was a sudden and terrifying event that caught everyone who knew him off guard. His heart stopped, and for a few moments he was gone. Medically speaking, Daniel died. The doctors and paramedics worked frantically to bring him back, using electric paddles to restart his heart. Miraculously, they succeeded, and Daniel returned to life. But during the time his heart had stopped, something profound happened to him. Daniel later shared that he had seen the other side. According to him, he went to a place he could only describe as heaven. It wasn't just a dream or a fleeting thought. It was an experience so real and vivid that it shook him to his core. In this place, Daniel saw loving relatives who had passed away long before. These were people he had loved and missed dearly, family members who had been a part of his life in better times. They welcomed him with warmth and kindness, their presence filling him with a sense of peace he had never known before. He described this peace as something beyond words, something so deep and comforting that nothing in his earthly life could compare to it. It was as if all the pain, anger, and bitterness he had carried for so many years simply melted away in that moment. But his relatives told him something important. They said it wasn't his time yet. They let him know that he still had a purpose to fulfill on earth, that his journey wasn't over. With that message, Daniel felt himself being pulled back to his body, and he woke up in the hospital, surrounded by medical staff and the beeping of machines. When Daniel shared this story with those close to him, it was hard for some to believe at first. In today's world, with so many stories circulating on social media, it's easy to be skeptical about experiences like near-death encounters. People often wonder if such accounts are exaggerated or made up for attention. But for those who knew Daniel, there was no doubting the truth of what he had gone through. His experience wasn't just something he talked about. It was something that visibly transformed him. I can say with certainty that witnessing the change in Daniel changed my own perspective on life as well. I saw a man who had once been consumed by anger and despair become someone filled with hope and purpose. It was nothing short of a miracle to see such a profound shift in someone who had been so broken by life's hardships. Before his heart attack, Daniel had believed in nothing. He had no faith in a higher power, no trust in the idea of an afterlife, and no reason to think that life had any meaning beyond what he could see and touch. He hated the life he had been dealt, resenting the unfairness of his circumstances and the years stolen from him in prison. But after coming back from that near-death experience, Daniel was a completely different person. He spoke with a quiet certainty about what he had seen and felt. He now knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that there was something beyond this life. He believed that we all move on to a better place, a place where we are reunited with our loved ones who have passed before us. This belief gave him a newfound sense of purpose. Daniel no longer saw life as a meaningless struggle. Instead, he understood that every moment, every challenge, and every joy had a reason behind it. He felt that he had been given a second chance to live with intention, to make the most of the time he had left on earth. Seeing this change in Daniel was incredibly powerful for those around him. His story wasn't just words. It was backed by the way he lived his life after that day. He became kinder, more patient, and more understanding. Where there had once been anger, there was now compassion. Where there had been hopelessness, there was now a quiet strength. Daniel started to reach out to others, sharing his story not to gain attention, but to offer hope to those who might be struggling as he once did. He wanted people to know that no matter how dark life seemed, there was always something greater waiting on the other side. He often spoke about how his experience taught him to value the small things, a kind word, a shared laugh, or even just a moment of stillness in a busy day. These were things he had overlooked for so long, but now they held deep meaning for him. Daniel's transformation also made him reflect on the years he had spent in prison. While he could never erase the pain of that time, he began to see it in a different light. He felt that his suffering had not been in vain, that it had prepared him to appreciate the beauty of life and the promise of what lay beyond. He often said that if he hadn't gone through such hardships, he might never have been open to the profound experience he had during his near-death moment. It was as if every piece of his life, both the good and the bad, had come together to lead him to that moment of clarity and peace. For those of us who knew Daniel, his story became a source of inspiration. It wasn't just about the idea of heaven or an afterlife, though that was certainly a big part of it. It was about the way he chose to live after coming back. Daniel didn't just talk about change, he embodied it. He became someone who lived with gratitude, even for the smallest blessings. If he had a few dollars in his pocket, he'd share it with someone in need. If he had a moment to spare, he'd listen to a friend's troubles. He walked a path of kindness that he hadn't walked before, and it was clear to everyone that this came from a deep and genuine place within him. I remember one particular conversation with Daniel after his experience. We were sitting outside on a quiet evening, just watching the sunset over a nearby park. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink, stretching over a field that must have been at least 200 meters wide. Daniel looked out at the view and said that moments like these reminded him of the peace he felt on the other side. He talked about how he used to walk past such beauty without ever noticing it, too caught up in his anger and pain. But now, he saw every day as a gift, every sunrise as a reminder of the second chance he had been given. He mentioned how even the weight of his past, which once felt like a burden of over 50 kilograms on his shoulders, now seemed lighter. He couldn't change what had happened, but he could change how he carried it. Daniel's story also made me think about my own life. I started to question what I believed in, and whether I was living with the kind of purpose he had found. I wondered if I was taking the time to appreciate the people around me, the little moments that make up a day. Seeing someone like Daniel, who had been through so much darkness, find such light and hope was a wake-up call. It made me realize that life is fragile, that we don't always know how much time we have, and that maybe there is more to this world than what we can see with our eyes. In the years that followed his near-death experience, Daniel continued to live with this renewed sense of purpose. He didn't have much in terms of material things. He lived in a small apartment, barely 30 square meters in size, and he didn't have more than a few $100s to his name at any given time. But he didn't need much to be content. He found joy in simple acts of kindness, in connecting with others, and in sharing the story of what he had seen. He often walked a few kilometers each day, just to clear his mind and feel connected to the world around him. He'd stop to admire a tree that stood 10 meters tall, or pick up a small stone, no bigger than 5 centimeters, just to feel its texture and marvel at its uniqueness. These were the things that grounded him, that reminded him of the beauty in life. Daniel's journey wasn't without its struggles, even after his transformation. He still faced challenges, still had days when the weight of his past came back to haunt him. But he faced those moments with a strength he hadn't had before. He believed that he wasn't alone, that the loved ones he had seen on the other side were watching over him, guiding him through the hard times. This belief gave him the courage to keep going, to keep choosing hope over despair. Looking back on Daniel's life, I can't help but feel a deep sense of awe. His story is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there can be light. It's a reminder that life, no matter how painful, holds meaning and purpose. Daniel's experience taught me to believe in something greater, to trust that there is more to this existence than what meets the eye. His change from a man who hated life to someone who cherished every moment is a testament to the power of hope and the possibility of redemption. I'm grateful to have known him, to have witnessed his journey, and to have learned from the incredible change that came over him. Daniel's story will always stay with me as a source of inspiration, a reminder to live with kindness, to hold on to hope, and to believe in the mysteries that lie beyond this light.